welcome to Chore Chapters, because everyday tasks need good company. I'm Leo, and with me as always, we have got Luna.
Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today we've got a thrilling and interesting story lined up, so grab your headphones and let's dive straight into the story.
Imagine this. A 17-year campaign of terror. Bombs just appearing seemingly at random.
Yeah, targeting universities, airlines.
Killing 3 people, injuring dozens more, and the person behind it. Completely elusive, motives totally unclear for years.
It's an incredible story.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into that story, the Unabomber, Theodore Kaczynski.
Right, and our mission really is to unpack how investigators finally cracked what became one of the longest, most expensive manhunts in U.S. history.
We'll get into his mind, the Unabomber's thinking.
Absolutely. And the experiences of his victims, which are just harrowing, plus the science, the forensics, the behavioral profiling.
Yeah.
Some groundbreaking, some, well, maybe flawed at times.
But ultimately, it led to his capture.
Exactly. We've got details from FBI profilers, forensic experts, and you'll hear these incredibly powerful personal accounts from survivors and victims' families.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to start with the man himself, Ted Kaczynski. His path was, well, extraordinary and ultimately deeply tragic.
It really was. Born in Chicago, 1942. And he wasn't just smart. He was a certified mathematics prodigy, tested with an IQ of 167.
167. Wow. So brilliant, he actually skipped the 6th grade.
And, that seems like a simple thing, skipping a grade.
Yeah.
But Kaczynski himself, he later pointed to that as a really pivotal moment.
How so?
He felt it led to this profound social isolation. He got bullied, felt like a freak, as he put it, because suddenly he didn't fit in with the older kids.
Huh. Despite that, or maybe because of it, he excelled academically. Harvard BA, then MA and PhD from Michigan.
Right. And then he becomes the youngest math professor ever at UC Berkeley in 1967. An incredible trajectory.
But alongside that academic brilliance, there's something else going on, right? During his time at Harvard.
Yeah, his sophomore year, he took part in this, well, pretty controversial psychological study run by Professor Henry Murray. Spent 200 hours in it.
What happened in the study?
Basically, subjects wrote these very personal essays about their beliefs, and then the researchers attacked them, described as vehement, sweeping, and personally abusive attacks, using their own words against them.
That sounds intense. Did it affect him?
Well, that's the interesting part. His lawyers later tried to connect his really strong hostility towards mind control back to this experiment.
Makes sense.
But Kaczynski himself, he actually said it had no significant effect on his life. Who knows for sure? But regardless, something shifted. By 1969, he just walked away from his academic career.
Completely abandoned it, and then...
By 71, he makes this radical move.
Yeah.
A tiny, one-room log cabin near Lincoln, Montana. Totally remote.
Living as a recluse. No electricity, no running water, just focusing on self-sufficiency.
Exactly. So the question is, what pushes someone from that kind of isolated life into becoming a terrorist?
Yeah, what was the catalyst?
It seems his radicalization really took hold when he saw the wilderness around his cabin being destroyed. Development industry. He concluded that living in nature, his chosen way of life, was basically becoming impossible. And that's when the resolve to fight back through terrorism seems to have emerged.
And his writings later confirmed this.
Yes, he wrote about his hatred stemming from feeling rejected by society and society frustrating what he called his powerful urge for physical freedom and personal autonomy. He explicitly wanted to kill people.
And not get caught.
Crucially, yes. Avoid detection so he could kill again.
Yeah.
He also mentioned wanting to kill people, but also wanting his writings to prevent people from just dismissing him as a sickie. He wanted his ideas taken seriously, even amidst the violence.
So the FBI gives him the name Unabomber initially.
Right. University and airline bomber. Simple descriptor based on the early targets.
But he had his own name for his cause.
He did. The initials FC, found on some of the bombs, he later revealed they stood for Freedom Club.
Okay, let's talk about the bombing campaign itself. 16 attacks between 1978 and 1995.
And the bombs got more sophisticated over time. He was using common stuff, scrap materials often.
To make them untraceable.
Exactly. Meticulously handcrafting components, wood, screws, switches, even peeling labels off batteries, all designed to avoid standard forensic techniques.
And the victims seemed almost random.
Often chosen based on library research, yeah.
Yeah.
People linked, sometimes loosely, to science or technology. It wasn't necessarily personal, but ideological.
Right.
And that IQ, that brilliance, was key.
How so?
It allowed him to design and build these incredibly complex yet untraceable devices. His intellect, twisted by his ideology, made him uniquely dangerous. It really forced investigators to think outside the box.
And the human cost.
Huh.
It was just devastating. We have accounts from victims and families, John Hauser, for instance.
Yeah, a promising Air Force pilot, wanted to go to NASA, opened a bomb at UC Berkeley in '85, lost 4 fingers, partial vision.
Just awful. But his story also shows incredible resilience.
Absolutely. He learned to write with his left hand, became a university professor. He famously said, "Life's too precious. If there's a blockage in this direction, find another direction." Amazing spirit.
Then there's Thomas Mosser, the advertising executive killed in '94. His wife, Susan, her account is just heartbreaking.
It really is. She described the horror of the package bomb exploding right in their kitchen, the unbearable pain of seeing his injuries, having to tell their young kids.
And she urged the judge for a sentence that was bulletproof so he could never hurt anyone again. Understandable.
Completely. And Gary Wright, the computer store owner in Salt Lake City, 1987, severe nerve damage, still dealing with shrapnel years later.
He talked about the psychological toll, the loss of innocence.
Yeah, a daily battle. But then he said something remarkable to Kaczynski in court.
What was that?
"Ted, I do not hate you. I forgave you a long time ago." He even acknowledged that Kaczynski's own family were victims too, thanking them publicly for their courage in turning him in.
That takes incredible strength. And we also heard from Dr. Charles Epstein, a geneticist targeted in '93, and his wife, Lois.
Right. Lois Epstein called the life sentence almost too kind. She wished for him to somehow feel what his victims felt, metaphorically, an eye for an eye.
Then Dr. Charles Epstein.
He defended science, rejecting Kaczynski's whole anti-technology stance.
Yeah.
He argued that science works to alleviate suffering. He also really pushed back against using potential mental illness as an excuse, calling it an enormous disservice to others with psychiatric conditions.
It's just hearing Susan Mosser's pain, then Gary Wright's forgiveness. These stories, they go so far beyond just the facts and figures, don't they?
Absolutely. They show you the real deep human cost. The suffering is immense, but you also see this incredible resilience and complexity too, like Gary Wright's forgiveness extending even to Kaczynski's family. That highlights the ripple effect, the unseen victims.
A trail of devastation. It must have felt like he was unstoppable.
It probably did. But then Kaczynski made a calculated risk, a strategic move that, well, ended up being his undoing. He decided he wanted his voice heard, his words published.
The manifesto, right.
Yeah.
June 1995, he sends this huge 35,000-word document, Industrial Society and Its Future, to the New York Times and the Washington Post.
And makes a promise. Publish it, and he'll stop the killing.
In it, he just rails against the Industrial Revolution, modern tech, portraying it all as this disaster ruining society and the environment, advocating violent revolution.
Yeah. And this manifesto, it turned out to be the key investigators desperately needed. Because for years, they struggled, this junkyard bomber, as some called him.
Because of the scrap material.
Exactly. He was so hard to trace. They even had his age wrong for a while. Thought he was 10 years older, which really hampered the search.
So with the usual forensics hitting dead ends, how are they even trying to figure out who this guy was? What else could they do?
Well, forensic science was still crucial, just in different ways.
Yeah.
Chemists like Richard Strobel talked about it being like a jigsaw puzzle, trying to piece together tiny burn fragments.
Looking for clues in the debris.
And they relied heavily on this concept of a bomber's signature. The idea that every bomb maker has unique habits, unique ways of doing things, almost like a fingerprint left in the construction.
So even if the materials were common, maybe the way he put them together was unique. Can you give an example of how that worked in other cases?
Sure. There was a case, Walter Leroy Moody, an ATF chemist, actually remembered specific features of a bomb from 17 years earlier, and that directly linked Moody.
Wow, 17 years.
Or in some abortion clinic bombings, they found this unique explosive mix, sucrose and sodium chlorate, from a brand called Solidox. That became the signature linking several incidents. Investigators hope to find Kaczynski's specific tells like that.
Did they try using taggants, those little coated chips designed to survive blasts?
They did think about it. Taggants had some success, like in the James McFellin case, where the crime scene apparently lit up like a Christmas tree with them. Led right to him.
But not for the Unabomber.
No. The program faced pushback from industry, and it had limited scope. Kaczynski was smart. He used basic, readily available chemicals that weren't part of any tagging program. Plus, some early FBI lab work on Unabomber evidence was later questioned internally, lacked documentation, so prosecutors didn't end up using it. It just shows how tough this case was.
So if direct physical evidence was so tricky, they must have been leaning heavily on trying to figure out what kind of person they were looking for.
Exactly. That's where behavioral profiling came in. The FBI's Investigative Support Unit, what used to be the Behavioral Science Unit, developed profiles to try and narrow the huge pool of suspects.
Is that like what you see in movies?
Sort of, but it's more science-based. It wasn't brand new either. One of the earliest big successes was back in the 50s, the Mad Bomber in New York, George Metesky.
How did profiling help there?
The profile was incredibly accurate, predicting things like he'd be middle-aged, Eastern European background, live in Connecticut, even that he'd wear a buttoned-up double-breasted suit when caught.
No way. How did they get that specific?
A combination of analyzing his letters, the targets, the bomb construction, it all painted a picture. And a Con Edison secretary, Alice Kelly, recognized the specific phrase he used, dastardly deeds, from old complaint files. That led them straight to Metesky.
Okay, so what did the Unabomber profile look like? Did it get close?
It got some things right, described him as a loner, socially isolated, eccentric, highly intelligent. That fit.
But it wasn't perfect.
No, even the profilers didn't quite grasp the extent of his reclusiveness, living completely off-grid like that, or his specific academic background, the PhD in math. They knew he was smart, but maybe not that smart or in that field.
Was there any visual, a sketch?
Yes, there was a crucial sketch from 1987 after the Salt Lake City bombing. A witness saw someone planting the device. That image, the hooded sweatshirt and aviator sunglasses, became the public face of the Unabomber for years, kept the case alive in people's minds.
Okay, so for years, forensic dead ends, a broad profile, a famous sketch, but no solid leads. What finally broke the case open?
It was a manifesto. Publishing it was a huge gamble by the authorities. Attorney General Janet Reno and FBI Director Louis Freeh made the call.
A controversial decision, right? Giving a terrorist a platform.
Hugely controversial. But they hoped someone might recognize the writing style, the ideas. And they were right. It was published in the Washington Post in September 1995.
And that's when his own family stepped in?
Exactly. His brother, David Kaczynski, and David's wife, Linda Patrick. They read it and recognized Ted's distinctive prose, his phrasing, his ideas, from letters he'd sent them years before.
I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been for them.
Immense anguish. And fear, too. Fear of what Ted might do. Fear of a violent FBI raid if they were wrong. Or even if they were right. But David made that incredibly courageous decision. He contacted the FBI.
And that led them to the cabin.
It gave them the crucial link. On April 3rd, 1996, federal agents arrested Ted Kaczynski at his cabin in Montana.
What did they find inside?
A treasure trove for investigators. Basically a bomb-making factory. Components, tools, plus 40,000 pages of handwritten journals detailing his life, his hatreds, his crimes. Improvised guns, a live bomb ready to be mailed, and critically, the original manuscript of the manifesto.
Proof positive, and this whole thing became the most expensive investigation in FBI history.
Over $50 million by the end. Just staggering.
What happened at the trial? He didn't want an insanity defense, right?
No, he fought it tooth and nail. He even attempted suicide in jail. He insisted he was sane, that his actions were logical responses to the evils of technology.
But was he diagnosed?
A federal psychiatrist did diagnose him with paranoid schizophrenia, but its validity was debated. Kaczynski himself called the diagnosis political, a way to discredit his ideas.
So how did it end?
He ultimately avoided a trial by pleading guilty in 1998, sentenced to multiple consecutive life terms, no possibility of parole.
And he died recently.
Yes, he died by suicide in federal prison in June 2023. He was 81, had been diagnosed with late-stage cancer.
Looking back, this case really changed things in terms of how law enforcement deals with domestic terrorism, didn't it?
Absolutely. Attorney General Janet Reno, in a statement around 1999, really emphasized the FBI's lead role, but also the need for prevention and much better coordination.
How did they try to improve coordination?
Through things like the Strategic Information Operations Center, the SIOC, basically a central command post for intelligence during major crises, and Joint Terrorism Task Forces, JTTFs.
JTTFs.
Yeah, these task forces bring federal, state, and local law enforcement together to work specifically on terrorism cases. The Unabomber case highlighted just how critical that kind of partnership is, especially working with first responders on the ground.
And Reno also pointed to new kinds of threats emerging back then.
She did. Still worried about conventional stuff like the big vehicle bombs used at the World Trade Center in '93 and Oklahoma City in '95, but also looking ahead at risks from dual-use substances, things with legitimate uses that could also be weaponized, and the growing threat of cyber attacks on critical infrastructure.
And the case really brought home the wider impact, too, right? Beyond the direct victims.
Definitely, the suffering of the families, obviously. But also the immense burden on the families of perpetrators like David Kaczynski and Linda Patrick, turning in your own brother. It's unimaginable. It also forces you to ask really deep questions about what justice even looks like for crimes on this scale.
So wrapping this up, the Unabomber case, it's really a story about persistence, isn't it? Investigator persistence.
Absolutely. But also about the devastating human cost when extremist ideology turns violent. It weaves together forensic innovation, psychological profiling.
And the incredibly brave choices of ordinary people like David Kaczynski caught in these just unbelievable circumstances.
Yeah. And, the case wasn't just about catching a criminal. It really threw this tension into sharp relief. The tension between technological progress and its potential dark side, its unforeseen consequences.
The tension that feels very relevant today.
Exactly. Which maybe leaves us with a thought to consider. What aspects of our modern lives, our own technological dependencies or societal pressures, might be, perhaps unknowingly, creating the conditions for the next generation of Unabombers? Maybe not with literal bombs, but with ideas or actions that are just as disruptive, challenging the very fabric of society in new ways.
A sobering thought to end on.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. Until next time, take care and keep your chores company.